All right, kids, if you're in the room still, you just heard it. It is time to go to your class. Your teachers are in the back waiting for you. May the Lord be with you and draw you ever closer to himself and his heart. And adults, there was a real invitation there. August 2nd is actually a training. So this is a great opportunity for you if you would like to join in this ministry that is quite vibrant and full of life, with lots of life ahead. There's a lot of need over next door. And so you can serve even if it's just once a month. That's 12 times a year. Or if you just want to be a sub that's available at set times, they would love to talk to you. So see Peggy or Nicole or even Kristen and Luke who are right here up front. Call them out. It's weird. You're like on screen and right there. It's cool. But yeah, please follow through with that. You can also just send an email to info@belovedchurch or however you would like to. We will get you connected with that ministry. Now, will you pray with me as we settle into the sermon? Father in heaven, thank you that you would reveal yourself to us throughout creation, but especially in the Word. We have your written Word, and we know the Word, Jesus, you yourself. You came to dwell amongst us, and so would you be lifted up? Would you draw men to yourself as we exalt you? Speak to us through your word today, God, and we love you, and we are excited to hear from you. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, I've shared this story before, but my grandfather was in the U.S. military, and he traveled around a lot, deployed in various locations around the world, and got to fly through fun things like radiation clouds. Like, you got to collect samples, and they didn't realize their bodies are collecting samples too, and all the wild things that happened with that generation. But one of the things that he liked to do was when he would go to a different nation, he would get a doll, just a little doll that represented that people group, and give it to my grandmother, and my grandmother gave them to my sister. But one of those dolls was potentially explosive, and I mean that literally. My grandmother had one of these dolls, and as a wife on base, she got a bulletin. I don't know if this was on TV or in print or whatever it was, but she's telling me the story that she was notified, had a picture of this doll shows up, that she has this doll. And what's happening is they know that a lot of these military men are taking these dolls to their families. And so some nefarious person was packing these dolls with explosives. And if you raise the hands of the doll, it would explode. That's awful in every way. But my grandmother realizes the doll that she sees this notice about, she has. And so my grandfather comes back and she explains what's happening to him. He very carefully takes the doll and leaves the house. Sometime later, he comes back to the house with the doll, but the doll's head is off, and he says, "It looks safe." Like, what was that moment like when he popped the head off of that doll to look inside? Like, he decided he's just going to do this himself, that he carries the doll off. Yeah, like what? That's the guy. But the cost-benefit risk analysis resulted in him essentially deciding, if I die, I die. And he proceeded. He ran it through. He's not going to leave this danger with his family. And he's not going to make someone else face this danger. And he decides, I'll figure it out myself. I mean, could have just disposed of the doll, sure, but it was a gift, and it meant something. And so he decided in that moment, when he popped the head off of that doll to look inside, if I die, I die. And he moved forward. And how many of us get stuck, paralyzed in anxiety over far less costly decisions? And what do we do with our life? And we're always weighing what risks we're willing to take. And I would ask you, are you willing to risk even death if it means life for others? Or less dramatic and morbid, but just as poignant, are you willing to risk comfort? Are you willing to risk security or status or power for the sake of obedience? So we come to the book of Esther as we continue the summer series. And I'll just quickly recap if you haven't been around the last few weeks. Esther chapter 1 through 3, and we're going to pick up in chapter 4 today. But what happens is this book is radically weird, because in this book, there is no explicit mention of God. Like, God seems to be silent, and it's like this historical narrative telling us this story that's full of these wild ironies and dramatic turns and so forth, and we're left wondering, where is God? And yet you cannot help but read it and see God is all over this thing. God's active in every bit of it. But we start at the beginning that King Ahasuerus, who we know better in world history as King Xerxes, Xerxes of the Persian Empire. So think ancient Persia. The Persian Empire is the largest empire in the world at this point, and he is trying to conquer as much as he can, but in the midst of this, he's spending 180 days in celebration. The last 7 days are particularly wild of a party. It's all out, drink as much as you want to. And so all the men are feeling very intoxicated, and he decides, hey, bring Queen Vashti. Tell her to bring her crown, and most scholars say that means he wanted her to parade around naked with nothing but her crown. He wanted to make her into this show, and she nobly says, no, she won't come. And so she is stripped of the crown when she was told to be stripped of her clothing. She's no longer the queen, and they say someone else more fitting should fit into the queen's position. And so sometime later, he's defeated, and they come back, and they're like, we've got to find a replacement. He remembers Vashti, and now we need a new queen. And so they put together an entire kingdom-wide search for all the beautiful virgins to come together and spend one night with the king so he can decide whether she's just going to live in perpetual widowhood, essentially, as one of his concubines, or just here, or will she be the queen? And Esther is a Jew, and she has been adopted by her older cousin Mordecai because her parents have died, and Mordecai knows she's going into this, and so he stays close by in Susa, and Esther has her night when it's her turn to go to the king, and the king decides he loves her more than any of the others, and he puts the crown on Esther's head. And so Mordecai has told Esther, don't tell anyone you're a Jew. So now we have secretly a Jew has become queen in the Persian Empire. And Mordecai is in the city's gate, and he hears about this assassination attempt, this plot to kill King Xerxes, to kill Ahasuerus. And so he tells Esther, and Esther tells the appropriate people, and they stop the assassination attempt. And Mordecai is quickly forgotten. But in the meantime, there's this guy Haman, who's this descendant of King Agag, and he is elevated to second in command. He is the second most powerful person in the kingdom, only under Xerxes himself. And Haman hates Mordecai, who's a Jew. Everybody knows Mordecai's a Jew, and Mordecai the Jew will not bow down to Haman. And he just can't stand it. So instead of just killing Haman, he makes plans to kill all the Jews across the entire empire. He presents his plan to Xerxes. It's signed, it becomes a royal decree, and they send out letters to everyone, and the chapter ends with this crazy image of the city is in chaos and confusion, and here's Haman and Xerxes chilling out, taking drinks, while the city's in chaos, because they have just planned genocide, the extermination of all the Jews. But remember, there's a Jew in the queen's position. The queen herself is a Jew, but they don't know it yet. And so let's keep going. Again, the handout will be very helpful because we're covering a lot of content. So there's an abridged version if you want to track with me in that. But chapter 4, starting in the first verse, bringing this up. So the edict has been sent out. All the Jews are to be killed on a set day. Everybody's learning this information. And chapter 4, verse 1 of Esther, it says, when Mordecai learned all that had occurred, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went into the middle of the city and cried loudly and bitterly. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province. They fasted, wept, and lamented. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. Mordecai sent her a copy of the written decree ordering their destruction and commanded her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. So here, we have the crisis and the emergency plan. Remember, Esther is queen, but she's kept it secret thus far that she's a Jew. And now there's a royal decree has been sent out that all the Jews are to be killed on this set day. And Mordecai and the other Jews, they're publicly lamenting, like tearing their clothes, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. They're fasting, they're weeping loudly. Like an entire people group is about to be killed. And Mordecai sends word to Esther. Hey, remember I told you not to say you're a Jew, but it's time to come clean. It's time to let it be known. You've got to take action. You've got to go to the king and implore that he would change his mind. This is for your sake and the sake of all of us Jews. And then we pick up in verse 11. Esther responded, all the royal officials and the people know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Here is the temptation to just sit quiet and complacent. You imagine what this is like. There's just the absolutely horrific practice that they underwent where they took all the beautiful virgins across this kingdom, and one at a time, the king is just working his way through them, having his way. It's awful. They have been subjected to this atrocity, commodified, and the queen, now Esther, she went from, I could be just another girl who's taken advantage of, and the rest of my life is basically robbed of me. But then she's made queen. She has the royal crown on her head. She has all the perks that come with that. The largest empire in the world at this point, and she is the queen. And maybe best of all, she hasn't even had to look at the king in 30 days. But imagine how plush her life is now. That, yes, terrifying to get into this position, but now she's in a position where she is more comfortable than any other woman in the world. Like, imagine the resources at her disposal. How nice her bed is. How nice her meals are. She gets to throw parties and do all these fun things. And like, I don't want to paint it too rosy. Like, surely there's still some hard things. Like, this is still an awful maniac who's in power. But she's in such a plush position. To go from, this is a Jew in exile who's not living in the promised land. She's in exile in this evil kingdom because of this evil king. And yet, she's the queen. And her cousin who adopted her to become her guardian is saying, hey, it's time to actually like turn the light on, let them see who you are. That you are a Jew. And you need to use your position that you're in now. Take advantage of that. Implore the king. Beg him to not kill all of us. But she's so comfortable. She could just sit quietly. And she tells him, she's clearly afraid. Her response to his command, go implore of the king, her response is, hey, don't you know the law? If you show up in the king's presence when you have not been summoned, the penalty for that is death. Like a guy so wild with power that if you show up in the room when I did not summon you, you know what happens to you? You die. But if you show up and I didn't summon you, and I decide I don't want to kill you, then my golden scepter is extended out to you. And so Esther, it's like, he hasn't asked for me in over 30 days. And you want me to just go show up? She knows the risk here. This could mean her life. She's like, yeah, but all of us are going to die on this set day while you keep quiet that you're a Jew. And I mean, what would the temptation be, right? The logical temptation there that we would all feel is, I could just stay quiet while all of you die, and I could stay here in my comfortable position. That's got to be the temptation. And she feels the risk. I could stay quiet while all of you die, or if I do this in obedience to you, I might be killed before even you guys are killed. You see her dilemma. So verse 13 says, Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, go and assemble all the Jews and fast for me. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. Now here's the call and acceptance of the mission. You notice Mordecai's faith. He believes the promises. That King David was promised, just like Abraham was promised. There would be a seed that would bless all the nations. And then David gets this further promise that this seed is actually now narrowed even into your own household, that there will be a king of the Davidic line who will be on the throne forever. And so everybody's waiting. Who is this coming one, the coming king who's going to rescue us all? And here we are in exile and got to be thinking like, where's the king coming? And Mordecai learns with the other Jews, we're all going to be exterminated. We're all going to die in mass genocide. And he tells Esther, hey, go do this. But if you don't, if you stay silent, you're going to be found out. You'll die too. But you see his faith? Deliverance will come from somewhere. That even if they die, he knows God will keep his promises. Where is his faith? And the promises of God. Even as he's somewhat morbidly accepting, we may all die, but God's will is going to prevail. He will uphold his word. Esther hears this. She hears the call and she accepts the mission. Do you hear the language she uses? If I perish, I perish. Pop goes the doll's head. If I die, I die. It comes to this critical moment. Like, are you willing to risk your life to face even death if it means life for others? And Mordecai puts it so poetically. Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. And she says, okay, if I perish, I perish. And here's the thing, beloved. I love eye contact. You need to hear this. Obedience to God is often costly. And we, especially as a Western church, and I'm not just trying to criticize Western church, particularly the American church, but we are sitting so comfortably. Like Queen Esther, here in exile, because we too are exiles. This is not our home. This is not our kingdom. And absolutely engage in politics and all that, be a voice, be salt, be light, all that stuff, but this is not home. This kingdom is not our kingdom. We follow a king and his name is Jesus. He is the King of Kings. And that king calls us to take up a cross daily and follow him. This life in obedience will cost you. It is through great suffering that we enter the kingdom of heaven. If your life is entirely plush, if you are facing no persecution, then you need to be scratching your head saying, what am I doing wrong? Because the master says, if they hate me, they'll hate you too. And that doesn't mean that you run around and everyone just hates you because you're obnoxious and you stand there with big signs that are hateful and you scream and all that stuff. And there's a right way to do that. Let me just caveat here, the right way to do street preaching, the right way to do evangelism, the person should walk away from you thinking about Jesus, not about you. So if your means, if your methods leave the person just thinking about you, you've missed it. Let them be considering Jesus. But as we obey, it will cost us. And that might look different here in the United States of America than it does in Nigeria, where our brothers and sisters are literally being slaughtered right now. But it will cost us something. Obedience is costly. It may even cost us our lives. Obedience did cost Jesus his life. And he knew it would cost him his life before he even started in this incarnate life. He came here as a lamb slain before the foundation of the world. The plan before you and I were created, before the foundation of this earth, before any of the cosmos came into existence, the plan was that Jesus would come and die. That he would come and he would die in obedience. But even in his life, Jesus had his own kind of like royal scepter moment where someone in authority could decide his death. And just listen to the way that he responds at that moment. This is Jesus. He's been arrested. He's betrayed by his friends in a garden, and they've all fled from him. Judas betrays him with a kiss. They come with weapons and torches, and they arrest him in the dark of night, and they take him for this mockery of a trial, and he's being put before the scribes and the Pharisees, the chief priests and all this stuff, and they turn him over to the Roman government. And he's here before Pilate. And this moment, it says, when Pilate heard this statement, he was more afraid than ever. He went back into the headquarters and asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus did not give him an answer. So Pilate said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you know that I have authority to release you and the authority to crucify you?" Like Xerxes, someone just walked in the room. If Esther walks in the room in obedience, she knows it could cost her her life. That obedience could mean her death. unless he extends that royal scepter, says she can live. But she accepts that. And here is Jesus. And Pilate saying, don't you know I have the authority to let you go free or to kill you? And you won't answer me? And what does Jesus say? Jesus says, you would have no authority over me at all, Jesus answered him, if it had not been given to you from above. Jesus shows us that we don't have to be afraid of authority over us because we know the authority over them. He is trusting in God the Father, his authority over all, including Pilate, so that Pilate, when he stands there and says, I have authority over you, I could kill you. And Jesus knows that's exactly where this is going, and he accepts it. But he points out to them, you'd have no authority at all except what's given to you from above. Jesus was willing to go to death so that others could come to life. John 15:13, Jesus, as he says, no one has greater love than this, to lay down his life for his friends. Do you remember that moment when Jesus says, I've called you friends? He's gathered in an upper room, terribly excited, but we're back to John at the end of this year. And we're going to spend a lot of time in the upper room. But in that setting, when Jesus says, I have called you friends, but he says, no greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for his friend. And we know that's exactly what Jesus was doing there. That Jesus would go and he would face not just the possibility of death, but certainty of death in obedience. Because he was willing to face death because it meant life for his friends. To give up his life so that we could be his friends and live with him forever. I mean, this is the gospel, the good news that we deserve death. It's not just a matter of are we going to show up in a dangerous position and it might cost us our lives. No, the wages of sin or the consequence of sin is death. That we, since the rebellion, the fall in the garden, that the ticker has been going. It's counting down. That death is coming. It's physical death, which is this great enemy, but it's also spiritual death. That we've been separated from God who is life. And yet God loves us in grace and mercy. He knows that we cannot do anything to get ourselves back into a right relationship with him. And everything about our lives is screaming that we want that. Every desire you have, every great yearning you have to see, it's not just for the next great thing. It's not the next relationship with that hot girl or that powerful guy or whatever it is. You've got to see beyond every craving we have is for something that this world is not going to satisfy. That you can accomplish everything on your to-do list, everything on your bucket list is knocked off, and it would not be enough. We cannot do enough. And if it's just a matter of our morality and how much good or evil in this weighing of scales, all of our best is not good enough. We cannot do it ourselves. And the only thing that is ever going to fully satisfy us, the only thing that will make us rightly what we were meant to be, is God himself. To be with him. Only the life that he can give. And he gives us that life by dying himself. That Jesus is God the Son who came. And he took on flesh. We celebrate that we call it Christmas. That Jesus was born of a virgin. The sinless Son of God, now utterly dependent, making messes, and needing mom and dad to feed him, and all of what it is to be a baby. And he grew up and lived a sinless life and put the power and glory of God on display repeatedly and taught us, repent, turn from your sin and turn towards God because the kingdom of heaven is at hand and he is the king. And he invites us to follow him in this kingdom. That by grace, through faith, we are saved. It's trusting in what Jesus has done, not in what we can do, but believing that he died and he was raised on the third day. He paid a debt by dying that we could never pay. That was the penalty, death, the consequence. The wages of sin is death. He paid the penalty that we could never pay. Our lives are not enough. But the infinite, perfect Son of God, the perfect ultimate sacrifice when he died, it paid in full every debt we owe. And then he's raised to life because we get to also be raised to life with him, to live with him forever. So is your faith in Jesus? Is your faith in a God who can save when you cannot? Do you believe that Jesus died? Do you confess that he is the Lord? You are not boss. you'd have no authority except what is given to you from above. So look to the highest authority, to God himself. Humble yourself, bow the knee to King Jesus, and he will exalt us. He will raise us up with him. As he has been raised, he's the first fruit, and we will follow. The salvation is available to us. Forgiveness of sins, life everlasting. Would you put your faith in him? Trust him. Trust Jesus. Because no greater love than this, to lay down your life for your friends, and that's exactly what Jesus did. From compromise to covenant. Esther was assimilated. She's queen. She's comfortable. But then she's called to action for the protection of others and not just herself. And Jesus is God himself. And the glory of heaven, that he created all of this. And if he created all of this by speaking, how simple would it be for him to speak and it all just go away? But from the comfort and the glory of heaven, he condescended. He came down to be with us, humbled himself, as we said last week, obedient to the point of death. Obedience could cost us, maybe even our lives. And Jesus, it cost him his life. He left the comforts, the pleasure, the joy, the glory of heaven to enter into this mess so that he could save us. Yeah. Just prior to Jesus' statement about this, no greater love than laying down your life for your friend, he said, this is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. Personal privilege, like Esther realized, must be given up for the sake of mutual responsibility. We are so individualistic in our culture. And it, like the whole independence idea, like this is my house, get off my yard. I'm getting an old man too. Yesterday I went for a walk and it was just like, I almost hit the ground. Something happened to my knee. I don't know. It's like, what is happening to me? Everything's falling apart. But like, this body, it's mine. Why is this happening? We are so obsessed with autonomy. The idea that I can't do something makes me more mad than anything I know. Like I can't stand it. And it's not just about the physical pain, it's this attack on my freedom. And I love freedom. Let's celebrate it. We celebrate 4th of July, 250 years of independence, all that stuff. But like we have to see real freedom is living under the right restraints. It's in the freedom of God. And so to give up of ourselves, to realize, as Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you, means we have to give up a lot of ourselves. That it's not just about you. You don't come here on Sunday morning so that you get something. I pray to God that you do. But come here expecting that you are not just coming to sit there and receive something, but you are coming here to also minister to all the saints, just like I am, just like every other pastor, just like everyone on this stage, just like everyone in a red shirt, everyone who serves in any capacity. We are all here to serve each other. That it's mutual responsibility. We don't live in isolation. Give up the personal privilege and see the joy that actually comes with that. To live in obedience. As bottom line, Jesus calls us from compromised and comfortable to courageous heralds of the gospel. From compromised and comfortable like Esther, we are called to step into mission, to be courageous heralds of the gospel. To take this good news to the person who's sitting next to you or behind you or in front of you right now. That you sing these songs about the gospel because that person needs to hear it. They need to hear the conviction in your voice that you believe this and you're celebrating this and you are trusting in God when you can trust nothing else. They need to hear it. They need you to smile at them, to look them in the eyes, to know their name, to practice basic hospitality that you care about more than what's right in front of you. Those children next door, they need to know that there's a God who loves. And there's another way that's so much better than what this world is trying to throw at them. We need each other because God is actually working through us now as the hands and feet of Jesus to preach this gospel with great courage. And then you take it beyond the church. There's a world that needs this gospel to hear the good news, the hope that we have in Jesus. Like, beloved, look at me. Eye contact. Look, it's not a perhaps. When Mordecai says, and we put ourselves in the position of Esther to hear this, perhaps you have come to this royal position for such a time as this. There is no perhaps here. He shouldn't have said perhaps. You don't need to hear perhaps you are in the position you're in for such a time as this. Let me just be explicitly clear from the scriptures. You are in the position that you are in right now on purpose. You are there for a purpose. There is meaning to it. And listen, that doesn't fatalistically mean you're stuck there. If you think it's time to get another job, then try. Do it. When you watch the apostles in the New Testament, sometimes they want to go somewhere for the sake of the gospel, and God shows up and is like, no, we're closing doors, not their voice. He is that sovereign that if you are moving in faith, even if you go the wrong direction, it didn't catch him by surprise, and he can redirect you. It's time to move. But where you are, you're there on purpose. There is meaning there. There's a purpose for you in that. It's not perhaps you're in such a position for a time like this. No, you are there for this time. Paul said it like this, preaching at Mars Hill. He said, the God who made the world and everything in it, he is the Lord of heaven and earth. Hear like he's using all this language, like God is in control. He wants them to hear that clearly. He made everything. Neither is he served by human hands as though he needed anything. So he's in control. He has all power. He has everything he needs, since he himself gives everything life and breath and all things. Our complete and utter dependence on God is in view. He is all powerful. He is present everywhere. He knows all things. And now he says, from one man, he has made every nationality to live over the whole earth and has determined their appointed times and the boundaries that they live. God has us where we are in this place at this time. He determined it. He appointed it. And then we ask, well, why? Paul continues, he did this so that they might seek God, and perhaps they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Do you know that the person who lives next door to you, God actually has you there to minister to them? In the great American way, garage clickers, pull on in, click that thing, shut that door. I don't have to see anybody. Fence in the backyard, privacy. Because this is my kingdom right here. And God says, no, actually, I've got you right there. I've got everybody right where they are so that they would reach out and see, I'm not far. And you get to be the instrument of grace that God uses in this beautiful way to share this good news, this gospel with them. But then we put on the blinders. Me and mine, me and mine. Where you work, where you play, where you eat, in every place we find ourselves, God actually in his sovereignty has appointed us to be there, to be his witness, to share this good news, to walk in the way of Jesus. The invitation to make your life matter. And it happens when you see it's about so much more than just your life. If I perish, I perish. Could you face even death if it meant life for others? Could you give up of self for the sake of others? So I want to take you through a couple things. This will be on the screen behind me. But first, just to live on mission, to be intentional about being here where we are in God's providence and his sovereignty on mission so that others might know God and be saved. First thing, be a witness yourself. Be a witness yourself. Share the gospel. Preach the gospel. Be a person who people come to you like, you've got to give me the reason for the hope that you have. I don't understand how you have hope right now. And Peter says, be prepared to give a defense for the hope that you have. Be ready for that. Live your life in such a way that people say, that is captivating. I want that. What is that? What do you have that you don't go chasing after everything else we're chasing after? And yet you have this exuberant joy. You have this constant hope in the face of all of the pains of life. What is that? Share the gospel, be a witness yourself. And that means you need to know the gospel and then you need to preach it, share it. And then also to live on mission, empower others to do so. Empower others to be a witness. Be a witness beyond yourself because you can only do so much. But in kind of, Robert Coleman wrote this famous book, the Master's Plan of Evangelism. He points out how Jesus really focused on about 12 guys. And there'd be massive crowds and he'd send out 72 at one point and all this stuff. But he really focused most of his time on just 12 guys. And even in that, there were apparently like 3 guys in this inner group who he poured more into them. And Jesus, God the Son, all powerful, and yet in his humanity says, let me show you the way, guys. Just take a few and disciple them life on life for all of life. Pour into them, show them the way of Jesus. And then watch, they can then take a few. And then those few take a few, and you see how it becomes this exponential growth. So moms, if you're staying at home and you're like, well, yeah, that all sounds great, but I'm just like cleaning messes and trying to make the next meal and all that stuff. No, you're discipling those kids. And then they get to disciple others, and it gets to continue to grow and explode across this planet. And it might look slow like a mustard tree, but Jesus says, watch it. It grows up, and suddenly all the birds are like, that's where I'm going to find a nest. Exponential growth from life on life, but then also generosity. Do you know ministry costs money? Like everything else in this life. And if you go back, there's this fun little note in Luke's gospel. He's the guy who loves detail. And he points out that there's a bunch of women watching Jesus being crucified. And he tells us in his gospel, this little note, that these women, they're the ones who are funding this whole thing. That there's a group of women following Jesus around who apparently were wealthy. And every time, like, hey, finances are getting tight, they're like, here you go. With an open hand, keep going. And fun study, if you look throughout Christian history, at every single church, every single prominent minister, like all the great names that you hear of, and you look, there's a patron behind them. There's typically one or a few who are helping, empower, fuel that ministry financially. And here, I don't know your finances. I can take a guess on some of you. I know what the mean income is around here. It doesn't actually take a bunch of rich people to make ministry happen. It takes just us saying, we'll give. We'll give regularly. We'll give joyfully. And occasionally we'll give even sacrificially. But what it means is that ministry gets to go beyond just what you can do and what I can do and what this church can do. That about 6 hours ago in Kampala, Uganda, a church that we helped plant on the other side of this planet gathered for worship, and they sang songs in English and they sang songs in Ugandan, and they got to disperse and go out after eating a meal, and they got to celebrate. And no, that happened in Kampala on the other side of this planet because of you. That church would not exist as it does if not for you and your giving. And there are a handful of churches spread out across Myanmar that is being ravaged by civil war, where Judah, who receives an offering from this church every month to keep planting more and more small churches and orphanages because kids either don't have parents or don't have food, or they flee the nation before they're conscripted to be forced to fight in a war that should never have started in the first place. Right now in this planet, and those churches exist because of you and your giving. And I could keep going on. Look at our missions page, come to the next missions team meeting, and learn about the ways that this church is fueling ministry across the globe. And when you go to work and you see that paycheck, and then you write your check or you click that button to give to this church, I want that in your mind. That when you give, you are not just saying like, oh, we can rent the school again, and it's really, really expensive. Like, why is it so expensive to be here for 4 hours a week? It is, I don't know. But I want you to not think about this. I want you to think about the gospel going around this world literally because of the work you did this week and your giving. Be a witness and empower witnessing. And then the next thing, like, how do we do that? Like, I could try to give you a compelling reason. But like, I want you to think about these biblical truths. It's all about perspective. What's needed to do this is perspective. 3 things, we're gonna wrap up with this. First, he's coming back. The King of Kings and Lord of Lords is coming back. It sounds like there's a tattoo on his thigh that says that, and he's on a horse, and he's got a sword coming out of his mouth and fire in his eyes. It's gonna be awesome. Every eye will see him. He is coming back. And he's constantly saying things like, watch. Coming when it's not expected. Watch. And like when I come home, it's become this fun game to me. There's no shame on my family, because I remember this as a kid too, and you probably do too. When dad comes home, and you're like, oh, that moment when he sees me, it's like, what am I doing? And I can watch, like, if I come home, you're like, oh, it's screen time. Like, oh, just playing my game here. Or like, oh, I'm kicking a ball, or I'm playing with a doll, or whatever it is. Then like, there's this level of like, it's not like, oh, I'm sometimes got caught, but like, usually just like, oh, hey, dad's home. But when I come home and my kids are doing something good, like my son's out there sweating it up, pushing the lawnmower, like, or my daughter is wiping the table down or whatever, like the smiles that they give me, because there's such pride in knowing like, dad came home and he caught me doing something good. Don't you want Jesus to come back and catch you being at work for him? And don't let that fuel your life out of guilt, but out of delight. That we want to be doing the things of God. So when he comes back, like, oh, what a moment. Like I want to be praying with my hands on you. I want to be at a funeral or at a wedding or preaching right here. Like, God, take me in this kind of a moment. Like, oh, to go like that. He's coming back. And the next one is that eternity is really long, and we often lose sight of it. I had a conversation with one of you this last 2 weeks ago now, but just talking about how much the illustration Francis Chan made famous, where he's got a rope on stage, and like 2 inches of that rope is wrapped in red tape. And he's like, that red, that's your life. And he's got the rope and he just starts pulling, and it's going back off stage. He's just pulling and pulling and pulling. He's like, and this is eternity. Like, you had this, and this is all of eternity, and you never see the end of it. And he just stops because it just keeps going, and you have no idea where the end of it is. And the point is, there is no end to it. But we can live this much when there's all of that. I think it's all about this. No. Keep your eyes on eternity. And then lastly, we speak naturally of what we love. I love my wife. Her name's Courtney. If you haven't met her, she's serving next door right now. Go talk to her. It'll terrify her. But I love her. And here's the thing. We celebrated her birthday recently. And for her birthday, my parents are super kind. They gave us this gift card to this really nice restaurant we wanted to try. And we went over, and it's in Winter Park, and so it's like this beautiful street and everything, and it's just us, so it's date night. It's a great time. But I make the reservation for this place, and in the reservation I can put a note as to like what's the occasion, and I write that it's Courtney's birthday. We show up at the restaurant, at the counter where the hostess greets us. I say my name. She turns to my wife and says, "Happy birthday, Courtney." Whoa, that was incredible. And then we sit down at this table. It's so nice and all this stuff. And we sit down, and before the server can come back with like water for us, she brings us 2 flutes of champagne. She's like, on the house to celebrate your birthday. We're like, whoa, okay. And then she takes our order and all this stuff. And while we're waiting for our food, another server shows up and he says, compliments of the chef. They made these one-off, I don't know what they called them. It was words I can't say. And I'm looking at it a little suspicious, like, I don't have to pay for that or that. Like, and I don't know if I'm going to like that because I can't pronounce it. But I put it in my mouth and was like, what? The next time a server came, I was like, hey, tell the chef to put that on the menu. That was incredibly good. And it just went on and on. Like, our server came to us at one point and had a Polaroid, and she snapped a photo of us on a date. Like, did the whole wavy thing, gave it to us just to commemorate the time together. Before we left, they brought us a handwritten card saying happy birthday to my wife, and they had every person on staff write her a little note and sign it. Handwriting, including the kitchen staff. Like, card covered and all this stuff, but custom to my wife, Courtney. I was like, what is this place? Is this heaven? Like, what's happening? But, the red snapper. When my food showed up, this is less of a plated dish and more of a testament to all that is good and beautiful in this world that is the majority water. It's fleshy, gleaming white flakes that are impossibly tender. pulling in a velvety emulsion that is rich but brilliantly alive, cut through with the sharp, vibrant pop of citrus, fresh herbs that wake up your palate with every bite. What am I doing? Calm down, right? Here's the thing. We speak naturally of what we love. When you love something, you will speak of it. You will express it. What do you love? Do you love the Lord? Do you love his people? And start talking about it. And let it be natural. If I could offer you every class I can think of on how to effectively share your faith, the best thing I can tell you, just love Jesus more. The more you see how much he loves you, the more you're going to love him. And the more you love him, the more you're just going to naturally talk about him. So fall deeper and deeper in love with the one who loves you more than you could ever imagine. When we speak naturally of what we love, we will make much of him. So are you ready to live in obedience on mission, even at risk to yourself? And I think back to Braveheart. Most of us were alive then, right? I don't remember when it came out, but I was alive. But I still see the posters and stuff. Do you remember the poster comes from that line in the movie? When he's talking to the woman, he says, every man dies. Not every man really lives. Every man dies. Not every man really lives. Are you ready to actually live? And it looks like giving up your life. Jesus calls us to give up our lives, and it's there that we actually find them. He did so firsthand, giving up his own life so that we might live through him. Can you believe this good news? Will we share it with our neighbors? Well, let's pray. Father, thank you. You're glorious, you're majestic, you are like none other. There's no one like you. Yeah, you want us. You sent your son to die for us. And you're now here with us, sealing us with your spirit for that day of redemption. And so God, in the meantime, as we wait for your return, as we wait for the renewal of all things, would you help us to be faithful? To live here and now knowing that you appointed this time and this place for us to live on mission for you. So give us the right perspective. God, help us to be faithful. Because we are weak, but you are strong. So we love you. We trust you. And we pray all of this in the name of your Holy Son, Jesus. Amen.